Welcome back to another properly recorded episode of Nydal. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but like I mentioned a million times, I've been quite busy, so live streams was the only thing I was able to put together. Before we start this episode, let me go off topic a little bit. I want to bring your attention to the main station here in Nydal because, well, as some of you may know, I was in Berlin a couple months ago, and kind of serendipitously, I was riding, we rented some bikes and we're riding back to the Tiergarten when I catch, from like the corner of my eye, the front entrance of what you see here, which is the Anhalter Bahnhof. I'm guessing it's an okay pronunciation of it. Yeah, this is the station that's in Nydal right now, and all that's left in real life is just the facade. Basically, a quick story. I think I mentioned this before. Maybe I didn't get my facts completely right, but according to Wikipedia, this was closed in 1952. This station was heavily bombed during the Second War, but then during the separation between the East and the West, this station had trains, I guess, coming from the East, but it was in the West, so it was kind of an awkward thing. So they kind of like the Soviet Union to shut down all the services to that station and relocate them to a different one. So, that building kind of sit there unused for many years and eventually was torn down, except for the facade. So that's kind of interesting. Anyways, when I saw it, it's like, oh man, I need to include that in an episode of Nydal. So here we are. Hopefully you enjoy those two clips. But we're gonna work on a university, which is something that's been requested pretty much since we started this project. I must say we're pretty like good in terms of progress overall. I think I was able to make a significant amount of progress in the previous sets of live streams and the last couple months. So yeah, we're not too far from like the end of this project, or at least where I would like to sort of draw the line. Because honestly, I can keep going forever if I really wanted to. But while I still, and I know I mentioned this during the streams, but while I still enjoy very much this project, literally this episode, I spent like a whole entire day just working on this episode, and I'm not necessarily done with it. I still want to come back, and I'll talk more about that in just a second. But yeah, it's definitely been probably one of my longest series so far, and I would like to complete it, or at least take it to a certain point where I can think, or at least consider, like, okay, I'm good with the efforts made thus far. In any case, this university, as you can see, it's gonna be served by a brand new tram line that I'm gonna be setting up in a couple of minutes. For some reason, and you're probably going to notice that as I, start, definitely in the cinematics, but as I start running some trains on it, I was having like a glitchy thing where like only half of the train would spawn. So you would just see basically, the train not being entirely complete. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. The whole point of this, one of the first things that I did here, by the way, like, I don't want to go too off topic again, but I kind of wanted to keep things relatively flat because that is a significantly easier, strategy when it comes to detailing. That was the original idea, but this is a pretty hilly area, so it's going to take, it's actually not going to be flat at all. There's going to be flat areas for the most part, but it's just going to be on like tiered levels. So actually it came out really nice at the end. And of course, you're going to see that in the cinematics and of course the before and after, because we have those coming as well. But I'm using here I think it's like the Humanities University set from the University DLC, which their architecture is kind of all over the place, and I sort of retrofitted them so that, and what I mean all over the place is that we have some like classic looking European style buildings, and we also have a whole bunch of modern buildings. So my thought process here is that this university, if you want to have some kind of backstory to it, is that it's a relatively new development. I would say like 60s, maybe 70s. It's not like this ancient, it's not like Oxford or, Cambridge or one of those like old universities that look like they've been there forever. These are like definitely brand new, and in fact all the buildings for accommodations and all that are going to be relatively modern as well. So you can see it kind of looks more like a hospital than a humanities university. The one thing that I wasn't like super excited about him, for a moment I almost like switched some of the buildings to like the different to one of the other sets basically, but they're a little bit on the bright side. It has all these buildings have that sort of issue that some assets have that are like super bright and like they're not quite affected by light. I don't exactly know what's up with that. It has to be, I don't know, some thing related to the textures for the assets. But here we go. Here's the tram line that I'm setting up. Obviously, a sped up version of this. It's a little tricky to see what I'm doing, but for the most part, it just connects the main station, or at least that was the original idea was a little different. But now, as you can see, I'm adding extra stops from the main station that I just talked about into this new neighborhood that I'm working on. Like I'm actually going to add a bit of an extension neighborhood in front of the university, and then kind of loops back around. I've been also doing some work of camera that it's not going to be in the cinematics or anything like that, so I'm just going to tell you just like specifically there's like a sharp turn that makes all the trains kind of glitchy when they turn around, so I kind of fixed that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. When it comes to the tram line. I also rerouted the buses, and you're gonna definitely see that in the cinematics because there's buses running in different areas now, if you're, I guess, paying attention to that. And this is the brand new neighborhood that I'm sort of adding on the outskirts, mostly so that the transition between the city and the university is a bit more seamless. For the most part, I'm just copying and pasting the same buildings next to one another, and there you can see how the terrain is actually, there's a big difference in height from this neighborhood closer to the river to the university up the hill. And as always, I'm using those retaining walls to sort of make a nice smooth visual transition between the different elements. Unfortunately, I kind of hinted at this earlier in the episode, but I'm not going to be able to finish this university completely. I still want to, I mean, I'm going to add some level of detail to it, so it's not going to be completely barren. But I'm definitely going to come back in the next episode and just completely finish it and add it. Mostly what it's going to need is vegetation and a few other like tiny details here and there. But it's going to look almost there by the end. So the cinematics that you're about to see are, almost quasi-vinyl, or at least that's the plan. Also adding a bit of a parking spaces for the dormitories. I'm sure I'll be corrected in the comments, but I haven't had a lot of time to research this, but I don't know if dormitories are as common in European university as they are, for example, in the US. So please do correct me below if I'm mistaken with this assumption. And in any case, I just added them, and of course they look like somewhat modern looking buildings, which I think sort of fit, in my opinion, they kind of fit to the same aesthetic as some of the other buildings that come with the university set. Over here, I'm just adding some hedges to sort of mark the property line between what's run by the university and what's part of the rest of the city of Nydal, what's taking care of the Nydal municipality or something like that. And just also adding a few pedestrian paths connecting all the different places. The university itself is going to have 3 tram stops. This is one of them. And then there's going to be another one just a few, I guess, meters to the right, and right in the main entrance of the university. I kind of left this area without any trees or buildings or anything, that it basically centers the point of view into the main administration building of the university. So there's like a very clear sort of path, even though it's not perfectly symmetrical or straight, it's kind of unobstructed. And again, like I think literally the first clip of the cinematics is just a shot that, basically you can see on that shot how it all sort of comes together. And the pedestrian paths are actually pretty useful because I'm just having a network of the way I put down the bus lines and the tram lines and the boat line that's on the other side of the river is all going to be sort of connected, and there's quite a bit of usage now, thankfully. So yeah, you're going to see that in the cinematics as well. I'm really definitely hyping the cinematics maybe more than they should have, but it's okay. What you saw me do a second ago, by the way, is I was adding some of the park entrances, but obviously I don't care about the parks themselves. So one sort of clever technique, I thought it was pretty clever, was to convert them to procedural objects. So that way you only get the building aspect of it, the asset, but you don't get the attached pedestrian path that come with them. And you're gonna see me do, or at least add a few more of those in just a second, probably. But I thought that was a great idea, and I've been literally using it on every one of the supposed gates. Supposed gates? Am I saying that right? Yeah, the gates that's supposed to sort of mark the edges of the university and connect them to the rest of the city. So it's all technically gated, aside from the main avenue that obviously won't be gated. Again, here just tinkering with the buildings surrounding the university just to get something a bit, looking a little bit nicer when it comes to the height differences. This has been the bane of my existence when it comes to Nydal. I think I have a pretty good hold on how to achieve something that looks nice now, but man, it's hard work for sure. Over here, we're sort of addressing the coastline, and I started just maybe putting down those nice sloped pavement things, and just to have like a nice sort of transition into the water. But eventually I realized that I preferred to keep the retaining walls that we have on the other side of the river, so we're gonna mirror those. And right here, I'm adding a pedestrian bridge, similar, well, it's actually related to what I was saying a second ago, because we have the boat terminal on the other side of the river, and I wanted students to sort of take advantage of that. So what I'm doing here is I'm laying down the pedestrian path so that it connects all the way around, and people can just go from one side to the other. I started with a very simple design, as you can see. It's kind of like a horseshoe end on one side, and just a regular curve that kind of hogs the retaining wall on the other. I was looking for perhaps having like a suspension bridge. I thought that would be nice. In fact, I might still do that. I just didn't have an asset in the game when I was working on this. So one thing I ended up doing here is extending that pedestrian path all the way to the boat terminal. And unfortunately, I had to get rid of some of these bushes and vegetation and things like that. But it actually came out great because I built this sort of retaining wall around the curvature of this bridge, and I think it ended up sort of replicating that same design on the other side of the river. Man, it's been so long since I've done these sort of commentary videos that I'm like tripping all over my words. So hopefully you would excuse me on that. But yeah, here we go. So I'm using this sort of it's not a brick wall, it's like more like a stone wall. It's very simple texture, and I've used this asset just all over the place, not gonna lie. But I love it. I think it came out great, and it's perfect for like making sure that the walls are kind of following the contour of the pedestrian path above. Just looks super seamless. Now, the issue on the other side is that, I wasn't too happy with the horseshoe design that I had. It was very big of a height difference. And I guess if you're, people with reduced mobility, like weren't able to climb that distance. So I kind of like created a bit of a turn here that's much more gentle slope, and again adding the stone walls just to make sure that everything sort of looks like it's part of the same set for the most part. I ended up raising this whole coastline just a tiny bit so that there's not that much of a steep pedestrian road sort of coming down, and bridging that gap with the applicable grass, as you can see over here. Obviously, in just a second, you're going to see me add a bunch of vegetation to sort of cover the edge so that everything looks nice. This is, by the way, me adding the gates with PO. I had to block the parking spaces on some of these roads, but as you can see, they're like kind of all over the place. I wanted the whole design of the road layout of the university to be very like organic and kind of maze-like, as opposed to just having like perfect grids or straight manicured gardens as far as the eye can see. I wanted to make it look like, hey, like we had this space, let's just develop it and sort of adapt to what the city's shape was before the university was there. And I think I did a pretty good job at it. One thing that you probably noticed there and in other places is that I sort of added an extra segment right before the road ended and turned it into a different network. That way, where the gate sits, there's a much more cohesive transition between the road itself and the gate, because otherwise it was kind of blocking just the sidewalk didn't look very good, and when cars drive, instead of going through the gate, it would just clip through the gate. So minor little thing that I think ended up looking more realistic the way I ended up doing it, basically. Over here, what I was saying a second ago, just adding bushes and trees. I also added those fake steps coming down because I figured, this is like a nice place for students to go hang out and, picnic and things like that. I could have added a few picnic tables and objects of that nature, some, urban furniture. I can still come back and do it. I don't know why I'm saying I could have done it. I'm speaking like I could have done it and didn't do it and will never happen, but I guess I could go back to it now that I think about it. And for the most part, I'm also adding these like super tall trees on the edge of the property, mostly so that from far away, when you're gonna see the camera, kind of zoom out, you can clearly see where, the edge of the university ends and begins. And I kind of kept those like high, the power lines just on the edges over there, because, those still serve a purpose. And not everything is like completely super manicured and have buried cables. Like the edges of that were so far in the outskirts of Nydal that it can look a little rougher and less, well put together than the rest of the city. I've been getting, ever since I started this project, I've been getting a lot of comments saying how Nydal looks like super clean, and like, okay, there's a bit of a less clean aspect to that, if I do say so myself. And over here, just to get a nicer transition in all these different streets that didn't look super nice on their own, and just adding a little edge with the network pace hedges, which I know it's like very subtle, but whenever you like see it against the light, or the light source, in this case the sun, it just gives it like a little extra shadow that, I don't know, somehow just makes it look more realistic in general, which is kind of what I'm aiming for the most part. Over here, I've been tinkering a lot lately with network skins, getting rid of the default lamps and props that are usually attached to networks. So in this case, I'm adding some more classical looking lamps. And over here, I'm also adding some clusters of bushes and clusters of grass, just to make the this main thoroughways just look a little bit more landscape for the most part. Together with the curbs by the one and only King Leno, everything is actually looking pretty good. And honestly, just adding trees in general on every patch of grass that I can find just makes it look freaking fantastic. And hopefully you would agree with me. These trees might look a little bit on the taller side, but you can still see the main building in the back, which is sort of my main goal in this case. And finally, just adding some props so that the tram stops look a little bit nicer. I basically added this sort of pre-made tram stop that it's in the workshop. It actually comes with like all the props separated, and also like a whole thing that's sort of like already like plug and play. So I ended up choosing that one, and I just added a few props on the edges of it because, I don't know, just looked a little nicer. Finally, just adding a few decals here and there just to sort of complete this belt. And I think we're pretty much ready to go here. We're ready for the before and after. So yeah, I'm sure you've been waiting for this one for quite a bit. It was quite a dramatic change, not gonna lie. I've been doing even some work on the sides, as you probably noticed. But this is pretty much all I have for you today. The next episode, we're gonna be finishing this and working on something else probably. But that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you in the next one.